Oh, yes. So much is at stake. I think one man can tell us about
If
that.
I'm going to get bad news, I want it from him because he's
That
very
guy.
handsome. Dr. Irwin Redlenner joins us now. MSNBC medical expert. Dr. Irwin Redlenner.
Here he became Dr. Doom.
Dr. Irwin Redlenner is the founding director of the National Center for Disaster Preparedness and senior research scholar.
Dr. Doom.
Hi. Good morning, Dr. Doom.
Good morning, Stephanie Miller. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to talk to someone that uses their medical superpowers for good and not for evil. I mean, there's a couple of big stories in the news that I wanted to talk to you about. First of all, the Surgeon General in Florida is found out to have, altered statistics in this study about, heart effects to make the COVID vaccine seem less safe than it is. I mean, that is just a medical and moral disgrace, isn't it?
Yeah, like in criminal also.
Yeah.
Because, if you're in a public position of authority and you make false statements, deliberately false statements, that ends up in potentially harming or killing some other people, that is a criminal offense. He should lose his license and he should be accountable for that. This is not just a casual comment among friends in a restaurant. This is a public official who knew better and lied anyway. I mean, not okay in any way, shape, or form, Steph.
Yeah. And the other one I want to talk to you about is this Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who, speaking of disgraces, when he was at the White House, we knew he was lying about Trump's weight and health and all of that stuff. And he's out here speaking as a medical doctor about Joe Biden. Here's one. Take a listen.
This man, like you said, I've served 3 presidents. I know what it takes mentally, cognitively, and physically to do this job. This man is a walking disaster right now. He's going to get us into trouble. I'm blowing the alarm bells right now. I'm sounding the alarm bells every single day right now.
Okay. First of all, and then he was talking again about this cognitive test. First of all, people thought that obviously Trump needed a cognitive test. Everybody keeps saying it. The test he took was not for intelligence. It is when you think there is cognitive impairment that you wanted. It's not meant to be hard. It's meant to make sure So it just when you look at the whole Trump, just the whole picture, and you compare. I don't know if you watched Biden's speech yesterday. He seems sharp as a tack to me, but it's just to use his position as a doctor to be putting this out there. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that he has no business making any comments about a person he's never examined. And like you said, I never examined Biden either, and neither did almost every doctor in America. So unless he's really making obvious statements or taking positions or losing track of himself on a regular basis when he's speaking, I don't think it's our business to be speaking out about him.
Yeah.
In Trump's case, on the other hand, Trump was making irrational statements all about COVID and undermining, again, the ability in his position as a serious leader of the country to make those irrational and irresponsible statements. That's a whole different story. That we can all evaluate. Other doctors can look at what Trump was saying and what Ronnie Jackson was saying, for that matter, and say, that's BS.
Yeah.
And you're hurting people.
Yeah.
You're killing people.
Here's one more.
Shut the hell up. And that's different than this kind of political speculation that Ronnie Jackson's going through with Biden right now.
And here he is, one more about Trump.
Donald Trump is 4 or 5 years younger than him. The man can stand up unprompted without any teleprompter or anything else, and he can talk for 2 hours, and he's very articulate, and he's very easy to understand, and he's very easy to relate to.
We actually have a game here called WTF Donnie, where you can take almost any few statements from that 2 hours. It's shredded word salad, as someone called it. It makes no sense at all. I mean, it literally, here we are being asked once again to not believe our eyes and ears, right?
Oh, yeah. There's a propaganda machinery now on the right that is awesome. It's actually effective. It's caused huge numbers of Republicans to continue supporting Donald Trump no matter what.
Yeah.
They're in. He can lie, he could steal, he could rape, he could do whatever the hell he wants, just like he predicted he would be able to get away with shooting somebody on Fifth Avenue. Remember at the beginning
Yes.
of his first campaign.
That is the second reference on this morning's show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This is like he's a danger,
Yeah.
and he's got a massive propaganda machine in social media and the other people that support him, like Ronnie Jackson. And here we go.
Speaking of which, I could not wait to get your reaction to Tucker Carlson's firing on two fronts. Obviously, that God knows how many people died because of his obvious COVID misinformation, and his campaign against Ukraine and being basically a Putin talking point. I just was really anxious to get your reaction.
Well, my reaction to Tucker Carlson in general has always been an, WTF kind of reaction to him and the things he was saying. To find out he didn't even believe it. He was just bold-faced lying. It's like Ronnie Jackson, probably is a really big fan of Trump, genuinely so, like an idiot. Tucker Carlson, also an idiot, said he hated Trump, yet he was day after day after day promoting Trump and the stupidity that came out of Trump's mouth. And you don't even know how to categorize that kind of hypocrisy and lying that has such an effect on the population. I think we're in a new era, Stephanie. Let me just say, a new era where social media and public irresponsibility that causes human injury. We're just trying to figure out how to handle that.
Yeah.
I mean, he got fired and all of that we know about, but isn't there more he should be accountable for?
And probably will be. Yeah, it's probably what's coming was more, the force than what already happened. But I've been thinking a lot about your piece in The Hill. Russia is intentionally targeting Ukrainian children as an act of war. And, I was reading Stuart Stevens was a Republican strategist talking about how much Putin got for his money 2016. Not only got Trump installed, but that, he was saying DeSantis wouldn't be coming out against the Ukraine war if, Trump hadn't taken the position he'd taken.
Yeah.
I mean, and Tucker Carlson on down. And I just was thinking, in my dad's Republican Party era, he was a Nuremberg prosecutor. This would not have ever been a hard question for anybody in either party, that we are against genocide, that we are against this. I mean, what you describe in this piece is just heartbreaking. You just one piece of you said the Wagner fighters, former Wagner fighters, described how they were ordered to kill civilians. This included instructions to clean up in a basement where 300 to 400 civilians, including about 40 children as young as 5, had sought shelter. The mercenaries fully complied with kill orders using guns, knives, and sledgehammers. I'm tearing up just reading your descriptions of what is happening in Ukraine. And here we have one party that we have to fight with to continue funding to stop this.
Right. And one of the things I was trying to say is that this is not the humanitarian crimes being committed here, crimes against humanity, for which Putin is already and his quote unquote human rights coordinator are already being accused by the International Criminal Court. And they're now they're wanted criminals. It's not over. They're still doing it, and the humanitarian violations here are staggering and ongoing. But the other issue of why we in the West should be supporting Ukraine is that they are fighting a war for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are fighting a war defending democracy on the most active, dangerous battlefield in the world today. And there are proxy fighters, and we should be supporting them, because if we don't, Russia is poised to kind of go after and destroy one of the leading democracies certainly in Eastern Europe.
Yeah,
it's something that we cannot let up with for humanitarian and reasons of defending democracy.
We've linked to your piece, but I mean, including you're talking about the kidnapping of Ukrainian children. I mean, it's just it's really Anyway, let's move. Let's end on a happy note because I know that you knew and loved Harry Belafonte, which was a huge loss this week. You worked with him on USA for Africa. I'm just reading in here. Belafonte and Dr. Redlenner, who served as medical director and director of grants for USA for Africa, became friends in 1985 when the two of them embarked upon with a group of other organization members on a trip to Ethiopia. They witnessed the need of the African people firsthand. You just said to me personally, he was a role model, an inspiring individual who's very important to my own identity as a social activist, and I know I'm not the only one on the planet who can say that. Talk a little bit about Harry Belafonte as a person.
You know, he was a towering figure. How he carried himself, how he looked, how he communicated eye to eye with people everywhere, including people starving to death in northern Ethiopia. And I watched this myself. His ability to communicate was extraordinary to anybody and everybody. And the thing about him is the message he was communicating unrelentingly was about social justice and unfairness and how much better America could be and should be.
Yeah.
And the other thing I reminisced about was he was one of two major celebrities I knew and knew of that didn't give a damn about whether their outspokenness would affect their career or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most entertainers, I've had people say to me, well-known individuals, listen, half of my audience and my fans and the people that buy my records are Republicans. I can't go around offending them.
Right.
Well, Joan Baez and Harry Belafonte had spectacular careers, and neither one of them could care less about offending people when they were standing up for justice and what's right.
Yeah.
And for that reason, he was extraordinary.
And one thing you wrote, I just thought all this about ageism, about Joe Biden, I thought was interesting because he was 94, I think, or 92. Yeah.
When he died, Harry?
Yeah. Oh, 96. I'm sorry. Yeah. But you said you were never surprised he had an optimism about social change that allowed him to stick with social activism until very, very late in his life. I mean, that's just another lesson in never giving up hope and how long he remained active and hopeful.
It's a cliche, but he was a true role model. And even just what you're just talking about, Steph, this perseverance. Gets up in the morning, no matter what happened yesterday, he's in it every single day. And, he was an amazing guy. And I'll tell you one little side note. I introduced my mother to him in 1986, I think it was. And Harry kissed my mother on the cheek. I thought she was going to faint. She did not wash her face for maybe a month.
He did have that effect on the lady people.
Sure he did.
Real quick, you talk about your last lunch with him near the Beacon Theater. Oh, home of Sexy Liberal.
That's right.
That's where we played.
Been there.
But you said you went to lunch there, and he was railing about the fact there wasn't a new generation of young black activists. Talk about that just for a second, because you were saying he was one of the principal people who would bail out Martin Luther King Jr. and other activists when they would get arrested during the civil rights movement. He put himself on the line. And you mentioned he and Joan Baez, as you were talking about, just really were courageous when you think about also being an African-American man at that time. But talk a little bit about what he hoped for the future of active. I'm sure he would. I'm sure if he saw the Justins, I'm sure he was inspired by them, like many of us were. But talk about that a little bit.
This is one of the big disappointments that never got resolved before he died the other day, which was why there wasn't a new generation at this point, like two generations, who followed him. And there certainly are activists. The two Justins are incredible examples. But he was specifically talking about activism in the entertainment community among black and minority superstars.
Yeah.
Where are they? Is what he would say, and he actually would reach out to them. He didn't deal with this passively, like just lamenting it.
Yeah.
He would actually get together with people and say, "Listen, you got to do this."
Yeah, and we need you more than ever now. So God bless him and do what Harry says. For God's sakes, love you, Dr. Doom. We're super late. We linked to all your fantastic writings. Thank you, honey. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. 21 minutes after the hour. This portion of the show brought to you by Prince. Hi, Bob.